Hello everyone, my name is Ian, you're watching Big Rock Moto, and thank you so much for tuning in on this beautiful early summer day. As motorcycle manufacturers have progressively switched to focusing on adventure bikes, sport touring bikes have kind of taken a back seat lately. There are many riders, including myself, who have switched from traditional sport touring bikes like a Yamaha FJR or a Kawasaki Concours because those bikes are just very heavy and they haven't been updated in a very long time. So that brings us to Suzuki and their brand new GSX-S1000GT+. Now, as shocking as this may sound to you as a motorcycle rider who's probably familiar with models like the Hayabusa and the Gixxer, Suzuki really isn't a motorcycle company. Now, bear with me on this. Suzuki actually had its beginnings before World War I in around 1910, where they made looms or equipment to manufacture clothing. And it wasn't until sometime in the 1950s that they actually started to focus on cars and motorcycles. Fast forward to today, and motorcycles only make up 6% of Suzuki's business as a company. Mostly they make cars and other machinery and marine equipment. So it's no wonder that we haven't seen a ton of innovation or exciting new models from Suzuki lately. Just to give you a little more perspective on the size of Suzuki relative to other brands, in 2021, Honda sold 17 million motorcycles and ATVs, whereas Suzuki only sold 1.7 million motorcycles and ATVs, or only 10% of what Honda did worldwide. The introduction of this bike, the GSX-S1000GT+, is part of their strategic plan to innovate and to grow their motorcycle business. In my opinion, this bike here is one of the most exciting models Suzuki has introduced in a very long time. With comfortable ergonomics, a nice selection of technology with everything you need and nothing you don't, and based on the venerable K5 Gixxer engine from 2005, putting out around 150 horsepower, integrated hard bags, everything you really need to go sport touring, and at a bargain basement price of just over $13,000, I think this is a very exciting motorcycle, and I'm putting a lot of effort into this review because I think this is a very important model if sport touring bikes are going to continue to go forward. So here's how I'm going to break down the video today. It's going to be kind of like my normal motorcycle review. I'm going to take you on a tour of the bike, show you all of its features, talk about the specs, show you how the dashboard and technology works. Then we're going to take it out on a highway. We're going to go on some straighter roads, some more big sweeping corners. We're going to go on some tighter corners, talk about the experience of riding the bike. Then we're going to come back here, talk about the competition, and we'll have some final thoughts. So with that, let's get out for a ride. All right, so let's take a look at the riding position and the seat height of this bike. Now, this bike has a pretty reasonable seat height of just under 32 inches with a standard seat. So I think it's going to make most people pretty happy. It's not as tall as the adventure bikes that everybody's moving to. So let me jump on board and give you a sense first of the seat height. So the reach to the ground. So I'm 5'11", about 190 pounds. I have a 32-inch inseam. I'll put the metric stuff here. And I can definitely flat foot my feet on both sides very easily. I feel like it's very easy to reach the ground. The bike does not feel heavy at all. It feels like the mass is low, and it's not top heavy or tippy, so I don't feel intimidated pushing it around a parking lot or doing low speed. Now, in terms of the riding position, so you can see here the bend in my leg is pretty, I mean, it's all relative. If you're used to a Goldwing, yeah, this is going to be more extreme. If you're used to, you know, a sport bike, this is going to be relaxed. You can see the bend. Let me put the bike on the side stand here. You can see the bend in my my shoulders and elbows and my back. So it's not leaned forward that much. So what I typically will do if I'm doing a long stretch of highway on this bike is kind of lean back like this to give my back a break and give my neck a break. And the bike does have cruise control, so you can use that to your advantage. But the riding position is only moderately aggressive. It's more comfortable than something like a Hayabusa or any sport bike out there, but it's not as upright as like a full-on touring bike. So keep that in mind. And I found the bike to be very comfortable for riding for a few hours at a time. All right, so let's go over the specs and take a quick tour before we get this thing out on the road. I'm doing this inside because it's just way too hot and sunny to be standing in the driveway doing this right now in the middle of the day, so bear with me with the lighting in the garage here. So first of all, the model. So this comes in a GT standard model, and the only difference is it doesn't have the hard bags on the GT. So the GT Plus comes with the hard bags. I would strongly encourage you to get the GT Plus if you even think about wanting luggage, because it's cheaper to get the bike with the luggage, then buy the standard model and add the bags later as an accessory cost. So I'd recommend just go ahead and getting a GT Plus. So what do you want to know about the specs? So the engine is the Gixxer 1000 engine, the K5 engine that dates way back to 2005, over 15 years ago. It's a 999cc inline 4 water-cooled double overhead cam engine. It's proven to be extremely reliable in all the bikes Suzuki has put it in. And in its configuration, it makes around 150 horsepower and around 79 foot-pounds of torque, and it has a compression ratio of about 12.2 to 1. The motor is hooked up to a 6-speed manual transmission with a slip assist clutch, and of course it's a chain final drive. Let's go around to the front. Let's just cover the wheels, tires, brakes, suspension. So for the braking, you have on the front brakes, so let's look at these front brakes. So you've got 4-piston Brembo calipers radially mounted, and they clamp down on dual 310mm discs. So very nice brakes, and of course you have ABS as standard. The suspension is an inverted front fork, fully adjustable for rebound, compression, and preload, and it has just under 5 inches of travel at the front, and the back is a monoshock, fully adjustable with about 5 inches of travel as well. For wheels and tires, you've got 17-inch tires front and back, which you would expect on a sport touring bike like this. You have a 120 width front tire and a 190 width rear tire there to handle all the power and torque of this sport touring beast. Couple other things you're going to want to know: the weight. So fully fueled up, ready to go, this is just under 500 pounds. What else do you want to know? Price. The GT Plus comes in around $13,700 US, plus of course destination and freight and things like that, and that does come with the bags, of course, on the GT Plus model. So quite a bargain for all this technology and horsepower and comfort in a very modern sport touring bike. One last thing I wanted to mention: the fuel tank is 5 gallons even, or I think that's around 18 or 19 liters, but I'll put that here. And you know, getting around between 35 to 40 miles per gallon, you have a range of somewhere between 150 to 200 miles. Okay, I've turned on the ignition here so I can take you on a tour around the motorcycle. So this front styling is pretty controversial. You can make up your own mind on that. It's not really my thing, but maybe I would get used to it. You have kind of these running lights here in this V-shaped pattern, and then you have one of these is low beam and the other one comes on for the high beam. You can see the low front fender. You can see the non-adjustable windshield. It'd be kind of nice to have adjustments, but you don't get that. The mirrors do fold in for storing it in your garage if you have a lot of other bikes like some people do. You have LED turn signals, which is great. You can see the exhaust headers down through here, how this fairing plastic comes up here to meet the upper fairings. Moving on to the side, you can see the side of the engine, the aluminum twin spar frame, the detachable rear subframe, detachable passenger foot pegs, which also make up some of these bag mounts. You can see the foot pegs here, brake lever, the pretty stubby short compact exhaust, which I appreciate. It's not some huge exhaust like some bikes have nowadays. Kind of getting here under this rear hard bag, you can see the rear disc brake, you can see the rear wheel. This one has some little sliders on it. I don't know if those come standard. You can see the driver's seat is fairly wide and kind of sculpted out. The passenger seat is pretty small. You've got some passenger grab handles here. Coming around to the back, you can see the rear turn signals, rear LED tail light, license plate holder, and not too much else different to report here on this side of the bike, except you can see the chain drive. So let's jump on and show you the cockpit and controls, starting with the levers. The brake lever has a reach adjustment, the clutch does not. You can see it is a cable operated clutch, not a hydraulic clutch. Left hand switch gear, you've got this 4-way controller, which can be used to control your trip computer, but also if you hold the OK button, it's going to take you into the bike's menu where you can use the connectivity, which is my spin, which I'll show you in a second, and then other settings in the bike. These controls are very easy to use, and I appreciate that. Turn signal, horn, everything where it should be. High beam toggle switch here, as well as a flash to pass. Cruise control, you set your speed here, and the activation button is over here on this side of the bike. Tubular handlebar, not a clip-on handlebar. You can see the engine stop-start switch. This bike does have easy start, so you just press the starter button for a split second, and the bike fires up without you having to hold it down. You can see the hazard lights, which I had activated here for demonstration. The key is right here. Oops, I didn't mean to turn it off. Now we got to boot up again, but you can see how all the lights come on here. Do the little dance, Suzuki logo. And then for the TFT, so it senses, first of all, it's a big, bright, colorful, contrasty, sharp TFT. Very, very nice at this price point. You've got a nice big tachometer. You've got your speed, fuel tank capacity here. You've got some phone indications for your phone if that's connected to Bluetooth. Ride mode, so A, B, and C ride modes, so different levels. You can set different parameters for that in terms of traction control, throttle response. B is the middle of the ground, A is more aggressive, C is like your rain mode. Traction control, you have a setting there. I have it in the middle, kind of a number 5. Quick shifter, which this bike has, works very smoothly. You can see that's on. Gear position indicator. You've got some temperature gauges for the engine. You've got outside temperature, range to empty. And you can scroll through this. Here, the odometer. This bike has 2,000 miles on it. Trip computer 1, 2. Some different readouts there. So very nice screen. I'm very, very happy with it. Before I forget, I want to show you how the hard bags work. They're very slick, very well made. So the bags are locked in this position. To unlock them, you turn the key here. To get them open, they have this one-handed latch. The bags pop open. You can fit a full face helmet in these bags, and they have the retaining clip here and this clip here to keep the bag from all the way going down. Then you have a water gasket closed very easily. To remove them from the bike, lift this up, pull that out, pull them off. It's literally that fast. So Suzuki, or whatever company they hired to do these bags, did a great job. Put them back on the bike. That's it, ready to go. So very good job on hard bags. Now what I want to show you now is the connectivity app. Sometimes I leave this out of my videos and people always complain, so we definitely want to show you how this works. So this is Suzuki's first bike that they have this on. So what I have is I have my phone paired to the dashboard, and my Bluetooth helmet communicator, my Senna, paired to the dashboard as well, and then everything's also connected into the phone. So here's how this works. When everything's connected, you can see you've got phone connection and rider helmet. You'll hold the OK button on the left-hand switch gear. Go to connect. Go to My Spin. I don't know what's happening here. Okay, so I had a little technical difficulty there. What I had to do was go into my phone, open the MySpin app to sort of reactivate it. And now I can go back in here, hit OK, go into MySpin, and now it's ready to work. So then it pulls up on the dash. You have some different options here. So you're now in the MySpin mode. If you notice, what happens is your speedometer and gear position and other stuff move up here. You lose the tachometer, and then you have actually a small tachometer down here. I'm sorry. It's very handy, and a fuel gauge as well, and a clock. Now you can go into contacts, calendar, maps, music, phone, and it also has a Rever app. Now there's other third-party apps that they're adding support for, like different GPS navigation apps and different things, or music apps, so that's kind of in development. I can't show you all that right now. If I go into maps, you'll be looking at the Suzuki map here, and it's actually pretty cool. The map, it looks kind of like Google Maps, honestly. You can zoom in and out using the handlebars. You can do various navigation features. So having this all on a TFT is really great, and I'm glad to see Suzuki doing this. Honestly, this works better than most bikes I've tested. It's definitely better than the overcomplicated and very finicky BMW system that they have. If I go into Rever, you can see here it's going to pull up the Rever app with a Rever map, and you can do, if you like to track your rides or plan your rides through Rever, you can do that. If I go into phone, I can go here into different contacts. I can dial different numbers, and you can, of course, control phone calls through the buttons here on the handlebar. So that's the MySpin app. I think it's great. To exit it, you simply keep hitting the back button until you get back to your main dashboard. Alright, so riding the Suzuki GSX-S1000GT Plus. So in these high-speed kind of sweepers, I mean, I feel like that's what this bike's really made for, like perfect sport touring kind of roads. Has a ton of power, ton of torque, handles very, very well. Some things I've noticed, the brakes are a little bit soft. They're not great. I mean, the power's there, but they just feel a bit mushy. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't know what's going on with this traffic here. So yeah, handling is great. Brakes are just okay. The engine, so there's something I wanted to mention about the engine that I forgot to mention earlier. It's not just like a recycled engine from 15 years ago. Yes, it's based on the old K5 engine, but what Suzuki has done is they've made a lot of internal changes to the engine, pretty extensive, to smooth out the power delivery, flatten the torque curve, flatten the power curve, make it more rideable, and make the power come in a little bit lower as compared to the sport bike engine. And I think that's paid off. The engine, I mean, even if you just run a ridiculously high gear, like 6th gear at 2000 RPM, it's just buttery smooth and it fuels very well. It's, throttle response is great. It doesn't chug. In terms of vibration, yeah, all 4 cylinders have a little bit of buzz, but this one's fairly smooth. Even at the higher RPMs, it doesn't feel too buzzy. And this is a bike you could absolutely ride all day long. The quick shifter is absolutely butter. It's just smooth as butter. It's one of the best I've used on a modern motorcycle, so really, really like the quick shifter. Now, the mirrors are in a good position. You can see very well. They have a little bit of buzz from the engine, but not too bad. One thing that I will say, and you're probably hearing it right now, is that the windshield dumps all the air like at the bottom of your helmet, so it's pretty noisy. I wouldn't say that it's buffeting, but it's a lot of wind blast on your helmet. So in the summer, it's kind of nice because you don't get too hot. I think in the winter it'd be kind of cold. And I know you can fit a taller screen. Maybe in one of those deflectors would help. So you can see 70 miles an hour and 5,000 RPM, very smooth. You can cruise like this all day. If I use the cruise control, so I activate the system here, and then I can engage my speed here, 63. And what I find that I do is I ride quite a bit, lean back like this with one hand on the bar, just to stretch out, because the riding position is crouched forward, you know, quite a bit. Let's punch it here a little bit. All right, let's get this thing on some tighter, twisty roads here. Get ahead of this traffic. So there's a few things we haven't covered yet. I haven't talked about the suspension, haven't talked too much about the handling on the tighter roads, and also the kind of the overall comfort. So let's talk about the comfort. The riding position, we already showed that, but I feel it's very comfortable for all day. If you're coming off a Goldwing, yeah, it's going to feel aggressive. If you're coming off a sport bike, it's going to feel relaxed. So just keep that in mind. The seat feels pretty comfortable, although I haven't had the chance to take this bike on like an all-day extended ride, so you know, take that with a grain of salt. What else? So yeah, the handling. Oh, the suspension, let's talk about that. So I have the suspension set, all the clickers to the standard settings in the manual, and I'm very happy with it. For my weight, around 190 pounds, I feel like it's a good compromise. It's not too stiff, it absorbs a lot of these smaller bumps, but it's firm enough that the bike feels very sporty. So I like the suspension. Now, let's give it the beans a little bit here and kind of talk about how it handles in these tighter corners. So slowing down here so you have better audio from the wind noise. This is the sport bike that makes sense on the road, right? It's that sporty bike that if you want a sport bike but you're not willing to put up with the tremendous and frankly ridiculous compromise in comfort and practicality that the pure sport bikes have, because they're really designed to ride on a track. If you want something that's reasonable to ride on the street, but you're coming off of sport bikes or very sporty, you know, sport touring bikes, then this is something you absolutely need to check out and give some close consideration, because handles great, it hauls ass, it's fun to ride, the chassis is pretty decent, pretty good, especially for the price point. Yeah, the brakes aren't amazing, but you know what, they have rubber lines, you could upgrade that if you wanted to, give them more bite, or change out the pad compound. Engine has a lot of torque, even at like 2,000 RPM, open the throttle, the torque just pulls you forward. But if you want to scream the engine, you can definitely do that. You know, 4-cylinder, they're very flexible engine. So overall, this bike, I think, meets the goal of what it's trying to do, to be a sport touring bike with a capital S for sport and a small t for touring. Although you could take this on longer trips, for sure, I think it'd be very, very happy. It's all a relative sense of comfort and what you expect and, you know, what you're used to. But I would take this on a multi-day sport touring trip, and I kind of regret not taking this. I just took a trip up to the Sierra Nevadas for 3 days on the BMW 1600 Grand America, and this would have been a much, much better partner for all of the tight, twisty roads that I was riding. This is a great bike. Why don't we head back to the shop, so to speak, and talk about some of the competition and close out with some final thoughts. All right, we're back. I hope you all enjoyed going on that ride with me. So let's talk about some of the direct competitors to this bike. So this bike, because of what it is, it actually doesn't have a lot of really direct competitors that are super similar to this. There's a few that I've come up with in my research. So the most direct competitor in terms of pricing, specs, power, everything like that, would be the Ninja 1000 SX. So that bike undercuts this bike a little bit in pricing by around $1,000, but that bike doesn't come with hard bags. And by the time you add the hard bags to the Kawasaki, you're actually looking at more money than this. Also, the Kawasaki is about 15 pounds heavier than this bike, and it has about 10 less horsepower. The Kawasaki can match this bike, however, in terms of technology. It does have things like cruise control and a quick shifter and a TFT dash. It's maybe not quite as modern in some of those areas, but it's pretty much right there with the same tech that this bike has. So that Ninja is a very, very close competitor. Now, I read an article from MCN. They did a shootout with this bike and the 1000 SX, and they said that the Ninja overall felt like a little bit more refined overall package. So I'm gonna have to take their word on that. I haven't tested the Ninja 1000 XS. I think that's a bike you're definitely gonna have to look at as a very close competitor to this. There's a few other bikes that you might be cross-shopping this with. We don't get the Tracer 7 here in the US, although that bike has much less power and sits at a different price point. We do get the Yamaha Tracer 9 GT, however, and that bike you might be cross-shopping with this. It's a little bit more upright riding position. It uses a 3-cylinder engine. Doesn't quite have the horsepower of this thing, however. It's not as fast. It has a little bit different technology. It does have an IMU, a 6-axis IMU for more advanced ABS and traction control. This bike doesn't have that feature. And that bike is a little more expensive than this. So that's kind of a trade-off there, but I would say value for money, this definitely has that beat. Now you could look at something like the BMW F900 XR that uses a parallel twin motor, doesn't have anywhere near the power of this. It's a decent bike, but it's not quite at the same level of this. So again, this bike is pretty hard to compete with. If you wanted to go up market and look at something a bit more premium, but kind of the same riding position, kind of same riding style, you could look at BMW's R1250 RS based on their 1250 boxer twin engine. That engine has a ton of torque. It's down about 15 horsepower compared to the 150 horsepower on this bike. That bike is a very refined, polished overall package. So it's something you should definitely look at if you want a bit more premium experience and a bit more refinement, and you're willing to spend quite a bit more money, because it's going to set you back a lot more than this bike. Final thoughts on Suzuki's GSX-S1000GT Plus. A lot of people criticize Suzuki as a company that doesn't innovate a lot, doesn't bring out a lot of new models, and tends to play it safe. but I would argue that in many cases that can be a good thing. This bike is based on an engine that's been around for a long time and is proven to be indestructible. It makes a ton of power. This bike has all the technology that you need, nothing excessive that you don't need. It handles well, it hauls ass, sorry, pardon my French. It's comfortable, it comes with hard luggage, you can ride it all day long, you can have a lot of fun, it'll give you that adrenaline rush that you want, and on top of all that, it comes in at a price point that is very, very hard to beat. Some people like to complain about the price of this bike. I think that's really misguided. Look at what motorcycles cost now. A new BMW GS will set you back about $23,000. Triumph's new Tiger 1200, which is actually sitting just out of the frame here, again, $23,000. Other bikes you could look at, they're all $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. For something with this much power and this kind of features and this level of comfort and just overall competency as a motorcycle, it's really, really good for $13,000. And the fact that it's going to be super reliable because it's a Suzuki and they've based it on a proven engine design, I really think that Suzuki have hit a home run here, and I think a lot of people are going to rush out to buy these bikes. So I hope this review was useful. I hope it was informative. If it was, please support Big Rock Moto, and there's ways to do that in the video description below. Other than that, please ride safely out there, and we'll see you out there.